chat after the recipient opens it. There and gone. WhatsApp is rolling out a view once feature, ephemeral photos and videos in your chats. Lovely, especially in the age of Pegasus and all of these hacks. And the other question is, what happens if somebody that's hacked your phone views the photo before you do? Does it disappear? And do you know that the photos disappear? And is that an indicator to you that your photo's been hacked? That you have seen evaporated photos? That could be a really interesting way to tip people off that they've been hacked. The next big story at this moment is that Apple and a firm will launch let me explain who a firm is so you understand what's going on. Klarna, there's buy now, pay later. Buy now, pay later is happening all over the planet. So when you check out online, you have the buy button. In the near future, you're going to start noticing, you've probably already started noticing, even in America, where we're kind of a little late to the game, there's now the option to buy it now and pay later over 4 installments, interest-free. And Klarna really popularized that buy now, pay later. And they've become a $50 billion unicorn, second largest fintech in Europe, out of Stockholm for doing that. And now it's been duplicated all over the planet, including in the US by Max Levchin, one of the co-founders of PayPal, which is publicly traded. So now the headline is Apple and Affirm, the buy now, pay later company, are launching a buy now, pay later program for iPhone, Mac, and iPad purchases in Canada starting next week, August 11th, according to a staff message. Monthly installments to be offered in Canada on Apple devices. Company working on future service for Apple Pay purchases. And it'll be interesting to see if Apple does this. They do it in the US themselves. They announced a week ago. You could do buy now, pay later on Apple. And in the US, interestingly, it wasn't with Affirm, but in Canada it is. No doubt they'll take it international, and I guess they're going to partner with all of the buy now, pay laters in all of those different parts of the world. We don't know. We'll find, but no doubt we'll find out soon. So the next big story, and this is a doozy, and this is another American political hot issue, that the NLRB, which is the National Labor Relations Board, which gets all up into the issues of unionization of labor. So the National Labor Relations Board probe found that Amazon illegally interfered with workers organizing in Staten Island, New York, and the NLRB officer recommends election rerun for the Alabama warehouse election, which Amazon won, you could say, where the team members at this plant in Alabama they had a vote, and they voted in favor to stay ununionized, essentially. And what happened is some young guy was distributing literature about unionizing at the factory in Staten Island, New York, and was stopped by a security guard. And that's not legal. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed. That's deep in the law. You can't stop somebody from leaving pamphlets about unionizing in the lunchroom or even in the bathrooms or whatever. But they stopped him, which is against the law. And now, much more importantly, that the reason Staten Island was even doing that was because of the factory in Alabama back in April, which we covered every day. That went on for about a week. Each day there was a new drama developing. It looked like they were getting unionized, and then they had a vote, and then it was a big brouhaha. And I told you what happened in Alabama. However, they're now saying that because Amazon had undue influence in that election by tampering with the mailbox out in front of their warehouse where the votes were cast, they're going to have to do a revote. Oh boy. So Staten Island, and it was fairly close. It was like 33 to 66. And that's inspired other Amazon factories to attempt this unionization. And it's going to get hot and sticky if they do this again, and Amazon is going to do everything in their power to stop this from happening. They could even shut down the factory if they do vote in favor of unionization, for risk of if one of them passes, they will all try it. And so to be continued. That drama, just like the Activision Blizzard stuff, will continue for days to come, every day.
So
Sony,
Tyler,
yep.
battles in the war. Just battles in the war.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon didn't try to like pass the buck and say like, oh, this was a private security guard firm, and their actions don't represent Amazon. They didn't even try that, or
It doesn't seem so. No, it didn't, that seems like it was a employee. You're right. Amazon does a lot of that. Like the drivers who deliver your Amazon stuff in the Amazon vans are not Amazon employees. Amazon only intentionally, legally, no doubt it's a legal issue, as nearly everything is in the U.S., where they don't want to be, they need some kind of distance legally between Amazon and the drivers for some reason that I'm sure a lawyer can explain. But so they intentionally hire firms who, of course, have to follow everything to, the contract, or they lose their contract with Amazon to be, a delivery company that has exclusive, deliveries for Amazon. So I'm not sure why they do that. It's a really interesting question. But obviously,
Aren't the UPS drivers independent contractors? I mean, that's kind of they've been pushing, benefits and all that stuff just off. I mean, that battle goes
FedEx,
on, isn't
FedEx,
that right?
FedEx Ground typically is, but
Okay.
UPS, for as far as I know, they're like full. I don't know about new hires, but for example, my driver, I've known him like 20 years. He's full on employee, with
Okay.
benefits, going to retire with a really good package. And he's like, man, I'm just hoping to retire before the robots show up.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Chris. I know thanks for correcting me, but it's an issue. That's what they're kind of getting around some of those companies. So
And the UPS drivers are unionized. I just want to add that point too.
so the and that's probably why Amazon decided to get into delivery, because they knew that when things become unionized, they get a little more expensive from a tech operations perspective. And same with the supermarkets. So check this out. So in the US, a lot of the supermarkets employees are unionized, and so Amazon comes along and makes a staffless supermarket. There's no staff in it, hence no union. There's no bodies in the whole supermarket. And so if you're not paying, this union game, you can undercut everybody because your products can be much cheaper if you don't even have staff, let alone union staff. So you see where Amazon's head is at with all of this stuff. And I think those supermarkets gives you a little look forward as to what they're thinking about with the future of their drivers and their warehouse fulfillment. It's all just going to become humanless, especially if they're forced to become unionized. It's just going to accelerate the automation of the whole thing. Same thing. We're seeing the same thing happening with Uber and Lyft at the moment. Lyft just put 1,000 autonomous cars on the road in California. Lyft cars without drivers. Just as the unions really started pushing hard on unionizing the gig workers, Lyft is like, oh yeah, oh, it's getting serious now. Okay, good, we can get serious too. Put 1,000 autonomous Lyfts on the road. There you go. Have fun. So, Sony does its quarterly estimates, and who cares really? T-Mobile confirms that it will shut down Sprint's LTE network by June, whatever. Microsoft pauses free trials of its new Windows 365 service, which lets users stream Windows 10 or 11 via the web browser after significant demand, meaning like too much demand. So why do it for free when you've got that much demand? Fair point. On-demand movie and TV service called Fandango now, oh boy, they're getting into it, has merged with video streaming service Vudu, which will welcome Roku's official movie and TV store. So now we're seeing all the tier C, the third tier, fourth tier.
I thought I woke up in like 2007.
I was about to say, I haven't heard these names in a long time. Fandango and Roku are trying to stay relevant and merging together so that they can have a streaming service. It's just, we're getting into the late stages of the streaming battle now that the horses, at the front of the race kind of have their entrenched position. Everyone wants to jump in too, and they won't last and whatever. So anyway, question, there was The Verge did a Q&A session with YouTube's chief product officer, Neil Mohan, on monetizing shorts, which is their version of TikTok, which is rather new. And also, the interview also touches on content moderation, no doubt, which is a hot button issue with YouTube and all the social networks, and content ID, which is listening to the audio to know who actually owns that video by listening to the audio. In case you play a song in your video, then they take the money made from that video actually goes to whoever owns the rights of that song. But in the near future, they'll also be able to do content ID, not just on the audio, not just on the music like Shazam. They'll be able to tell who's talking in the video. And if you're using video of another video creator that predates your video, like, for example, you have a video of Donald Trump talking, and it was recorded by NBC, who uploaded it a year ago, they'll know, oh, that recording of Donald Trump is NBC's from their video. It's kind of like Shazam on voice. That's coming, and they're going to have content ID on video itself. They're going to know that the image that you're showing is actually not your image content. It's somebody else's. And so content ID is really interesting. YouTube TV is also part of the interview, and competing with TikTok is part of the interview, where they ask the chief product officer of YouTube if he feels that YouTube Shorts, which is an obvious, direct, blatant carbon copy of TikTok, do they think that that it's a TikTok competitor? So the question is, do you think YouTube Shorts is a competitor to TikTok? Answer: who can say what is the same and what is different? Yeah, who can answer such a question? Who's to say it's the same or if it's different? It's the fucking goddamn same, Neil. You ripped it off. But you're with Google, so you can't say that because you get shit canned in a fucking heartbeat if you admitted that. But you know you ripped it off from TikTok. Everyone knows you ripped it off from TikTok. And that's just tech in 2021. It didn't used to be this way. And a lot of people point to Facebook for kind of causing this change, where they first kind of took Twitter's timeline and put it in your Facebook timeline. They didn't used to have a timeline the way that Twitter does, and now Facebook does. And then when Instagram came along, they put in a lot more photos and videos. And then when Snapchat came along, they straight up stole that ephemeral stories thing and put it into Instagram and Facebook. And they're just ruthless, man.
Question though.
And hang on. And then Clubhouse comes along, and then everybody just straight up rips off Clubhouse, like straight up carbon copies of Clubhouse. I mean, no one barely made an effort to even hide it. Round images with your name, 3 across or 5 down. I mean, just straight up pixel copies. Holy shit. It was honestly really the first time where all of the tech companies now feel justified or enabled to do such a thing. That it's unprecedented, and it's really a tragedy. Because Clubhouse absolutely deserves all of the for what it did for pioneering this platform, and it's an absolute sadness that others aren't more held to account when they announce their Clubhouse clones. I mean, why isn't the press calling that out a bit more? I don't know. It was never like this historically. So anyway, Cheryl.
Yeah, my question was back to Twitter. I know originally they started off over SMS, right? So, but the thing is, until now, they still have not evolved, and it's still the very, very short messages. And when you need to share something longer, you have to break it out into so many messages. That's quite annoying.
Hey, Tyler, I got a quick request from Ken. He's raised his hand down in the audience. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't notice it was below my screen. Sorry, Ken.
But Tyler, you know the people who works there. Is there any reason why they want to keep it that way?
At Twitter?
Yeah.
It was because Twitter existed before iPhone. So
but they can evolve, right?
Hear me out. So Twitter started with SMS. SMS had a 140 character limit, 144 character limit. So you could only do tweets through SMS. It was the only way to use Twitter originally, was through SMS. Yes. Right. And generally users liked it, honestly. So even after they added the web part of sending the messages through your browser, was actually the first use case of tweets outside of SMS, was a little box that you could put on your website, on your blog, like a little YouTube video that showed recent tweets. And that's obviously web, and that obviously could go through more than 144 characters, but that was more of a reader of the SMSs. And anyway, then they added a box where you could start sending in the messages from the little box, and then it sent those out as SMSs. It was still an SMS system at that point. And then at some point, they just abandoned SMS, and it's now a web system. And of course, it could go much longer. But the key reason is, Cheryl, to answer your question, is because there's two types of, when human eyes look at text, there's what's called scan mode and read mode. And your eyes can scan about 144 characters. And then if it goes much beyond 2 lines of text and it goes into 3 or 4 lines of text, you actually have to go into a different part of your brain to actually read it. Because once you become incredibly proficient at any language, like English speakers for English, you hear me when I read, headlines. I'm not conscious that I'm doing it almost subconsciously. It takes no effort. And I'm not reading every letter of every word. I'm not even reading individual words. I'm reading a whole string of words as one item, almost like a photo. So that's called scan mode. You can scan 140 characters instantly in one instant brain impulse. And if you go beyond that, you're no longer in scan mode. And the way to make an example of this is if you're ever watching a PowerPoint or a PDF presentation of somebody on stage with their slides, and if they put text on their slides, imagine we're all sitting in an audience. There's some jackass on stage with a clicker in his hand showing his slides. And on those slides, there's some amount of text. Now, imagine the text is 144 characters, okay? 8 words, 10 words. Your brain can digest those 8 words instantly, without reading it. You actually don't go into reading. You don't sit there and say, the brown fox jumped over the red dog. No, your brain just says, the brown fox jumped over the red dog instantly. That's called scanning. Your brain can scan that piece of text. If you go much more beyond that, then your brain has to start reading. You cannot scan four lines of text. So your brain goes, shit, now I got to read this. Okay, the brown fox jumped over the red dog, and then he went to the milk and got some cookies at the store and came back. Okay, that's not scanning. That's reading. Totally different mental function. And so when you're doing Twitter, you're scanning. Scan, 144 characters. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but I still think that they should, at least give people the option. They will truncate it at 144 words, and then there's a read more button that if people are interested, they can just click and go down.
Yeah,
because if not,
I agree with that. So the next big, there was also in the early days of Twitter, it was technically quite challenging to deal with tens of millions of tweets per second. And so having the reduced size was meaningful. It would have actually been technically more challenging if you doubled the size of every tweet at that time when they were transitioning from SMS to text, to web-based text. So anyway, where did we go? Fandango Q&A with YouTube. Okay, next big articles from Bloomberg. PE firm Apex Partner says it is merging 3 companies to make software for nonprofits. Who cares? California's Attorney General case examples of CCPA enforcement seems to indicate that the companies can't rely on trade groups' blanket out tools not tailored to CCPA. Big whoop. India-based Parat Pay, which helps offline merchants accept digital payments, raises $370 million, led by, you guessed it, Tiger Global at a $2.85 billion. So another big Indian company. Raising a whole bunch of money and for offline merchants to accept digital payments. More fintech in India. Big what? Internal document. It's brand new. Here's a hot new headline. I'll spare you the sound file. Google fired dozens of engineers between 2018 and 2020 for abusing their access to data and tools. Oh, shit. And why is this coming out now? Some allegations potentially center around accessing Google user or employee data. Google has fired dozens of employees between. The real question is, how did they find this out, honestly? Between 2018 and 2020 for abusing their access to the company's tools or data, with some workers potentially facing allegations of accessing Google user or employee data, according to an internal Google document obtained by Motherboard. The document provides concrete figures on an often delicate part of the tech giant's operations, investigations into how companies' own employees leverage their position inside the company to steal, leak, and abuse data they may have access to. Insider abuse is a problem across the tech industry. Motherboard previously uncovered instances at Facebook, Snapchat, and MySpace, with employees in some cases using their access to stalk or otherwise spy on users. The document says that Google terminated 36 employees in 2020 for security-related issues. 86, I wonder if they're disgruntled, and I wonder if we did an interview with them, if they would say all kinds of mean things about Google. I'm obviously making a joke about the Gorillas article that we read recently about 9 former employees being disgruntled, although they were minimum wage.
They fired me without reason, except I was stalking women using unauthorized access tools.
Was that you?
Yeah. Now we know why he's spending all his time here in Tech News. 86% of all security-related allegations against employees included mishandling of confidential information, such as the transfer of internal-only information to outside parties. Oh, shit. That's really bad. I mean, it's one thing if you're doing it internally for your eyes only, but if you bring that data outside the company to outside parties, oh, shit. That's not firing. That's lawsuit shit. I imagine the only reason they wouldn't sue you is because they wouldn't want to run the PR nightmare of it having been known that happened. 10% of all allegations in 2020 concerned misuse of systems, which can include accessing user or employee data in violation of Google's own policies, helping others to access that data, or modifying or deleting user or employee data. According to the document, in 2019, that figure was 13% of all security allegations. They terminated 26 people in 2019 and 18 in 2018. Okay, so it went from 18 to 26 to 36. It's a growing problem in the past 3 years, all related to security incidents. The document says that other measures Google can take with employees that mishandled data can include warnings, trainings, and coaching, or suing. I would imagine. Google spokesperson told Motherboard in a statement the instances referred to mostly relate to inappropriate access to or misuse of proprietary or sensitive corporate information or IP. There you go. Wow. BuildDots. 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 BuildDots, which uses computer vision to modernize construction management, raises $30 million from Lightspeed. And that's an area that has a lot of digitization to go and a lot of investment to go. All the sessions So that will be an interesting to watch. That's kind of where America's at in its stage of things, where we're going to start seeing more digitization of buildings and smart city and all of that. And so this headline is kind of interesting at the moment, basically it shows a construction worker with a hard hat and boots on a job site inside of building a skyscraper with an iPad doing VR and enable them to make better buildings and better use of the space and the layers of the building. It's kind of like the body where you've got the plumbing layer and the electrical layer. And, so anyway, Google, now this one's interesting. Google consolidates its sign-in offerings with a new family of identity APIs called Google Identity Services, including a new one-tap sign-in prompt, where supported sign-in with Google is a convenient way to log into third-party services without having to keep track of different passwords. And what an amazing coincidence, is it not, that Apple just about, I don't know, how long ago was that? With their Apple ID connecting with, it's coming out soon, we should say. It's not officially out yet, but it's clearly they've done the actual coding and everything of what's going to be their Apple ID. And then we only got a pre-glimpse of this because it's in iPhone iOS 15, which is in beta now, which Johan and I are using, which you will be downloading in about 3 weeks. And it enables for you to merge your state-issued ID, your driver's license, your passport, with your Apple ID. That's step one. And then we also learned from an audience member who DM'd me that Apple's forcing every app in Apple App Store, that's every app on your phone, to use Apple ID as an option to log in, just like Facebook login or Google login. And Twitter yesterday just announced that they're now using Apple ID because they're now forcing it on everybody. So very soon you will see this Apple ID on every app, and it will connect to your state IDs. And Google is now just doing the same. Google consolidates to create Google Identity Services. Why do they call it Google Identity? It's an end of identity APIs. And what is imagine who's pushing this, that they would both do this simultaneously? Why is this happening simultaneously? Who's pushing them to do this? That's right. It's the government. You got it. They want to know who you are. I told you 2 months ago this was coming. I've been saying this almost every day. This is coming. They're going to force identity verification in every app, not just the social networks, every app. They want to know everything on everybody. Not so dissimilar to the provision in the new infrastructure bill that's going to require every blockchain company of any kind, any digital asset of any kind, NFTs, doesn't matter, Ethereum, doesn't matter, all of it, you're going to have to do 1099s on those people if you're in America. And when you issue a 1099 to somebody, that means they have to provide their legal name, their legal address verified. So anyone doing anything on anything to do with crypto, anything, you have to have that, or you go to jail if you don't have that, is what happens because it's the IRS who drives that. So if you don't hand over that data about that the IRS is insisting, you're screwed. You're totally screwed. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. So Google Identity and Apple ID, Apple login with your identity, with your state identity, verified, authenticated. So Yellow AI, which builds AI-powered conversational chatbot tools, raises $78 million. Yellow AI builds AI-powered conversational chatbot tools. Okay, that's fine. Atlanta-based Full Story, which offers analytics tools to improve user experiences, raises $103 million at a $1.8 billion valuation, bringing total rate. Who cares? They offer analytics tools to improve user experiences. Okay, that's nice. We all need that. After criticism from China, and this is from the South China Morning Post, a Chinese publication. After criticism from China, Tencent says it will limit playing time of their flagship video game, Honor of Kings, for under 18s to 1 hour per day and not between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. So this continues to escalate. What blows my mind is that there hasn't been a day in the past 3 weeks where China hasn't made some kind of strong move. And in this, and we talked about this when we met 7 hours ago. David Cheng, our buddy from Beijing, who's an Uber geek, was on stage. And this is a new headline, and we're going to dive into this new headline in a second, but it's related to the conversation we had 7 hours ago with David, where we said, hey, David, this crackdown on, well, it's not a crackdown on video games. What it was a Chinese publication, not South China Morning Post, an actual state mouthpiece called Xinhua, made a statement that online games are the opiate of the masses, and thus we need to control them because they're the net outcome of them is that they cause social isolation. Well, why would you be concerned about social isolation? Well, because they are incredibly concerned, obviously, by connecting the dots about the declining birth rate. And thus, they need to address the social isolation that's being caused by these online video games. That's why we're not having kids. Hey, G, what's going on? The birth rate's declining. Why is it declining? I don't know. Maybe it's the video games. Yeah, sure. My kids are playing the video games too. Yeah, they're not dating anymore. Ah, shit. Okay, there's our answer. Let's go get them. It's the video games. By the way, China's not alone in thinking that. The whole fucking world's thinking that. And they might be correct about that. So, I'm not blaming them for thinking this, but God bless China. When they think something, they take very immediate, swift action on it. And that's why you saw yesterday the state mouthpiece said, we're going to crack down on the video games. Not only are they cracking down on the video games as the opiate of the masses, where the article actually said they need to improve the content they're consuming. They want to crack down on the algorithms that are delivering what people are watching. That's TikTok and Weibo, which is their version of Twitter. So they want to crack down on the algorithms because the algorithms are showing deplorable content, aka twerking. Right? They're tired of TikTok and their Twitter showing you twerking when they really should be showing you, according to their words, Marxist critical Marxist literary criticism. That's what they would prefer that these algorithms show you. And they even said, we're going to work with the algorithms to bend to the will of the state and what we as the Ministry of Culture want you to be exposed to. And that's nice that the algorithm thinks you want to watch twerking videos all day, but we're not having none of that. And in fact, we've punished, that was the word used in the article, punished 4,000 users for consuming that content and banned 150,000 pieces of content around ostensibly twerking and the likes, where they even said celebrity obsession type gossip shit. That's what they said. So they're banning the twerking. They're boosting the Marxism inside of their own algorithms of TikTok and Twitter. That's their words. I'm not making this up. These are I'm just telling you what the state is saying they're going to do. And why are they doing this? In their words, they say, well, because all of this is leading to social isolation. Now, that makes sense. They're obviously incredibly focused on the declining birth rate at the moment. And we know this because it started when they cracked down on the cost of educating children, which is one of the biggest reasons when you ask Chinese families, why aren't you having children? They'll say it's too expensive to educate them. Great, fixed, boom. We just killed $100 billion industry of the ed tech companies. What's next? Oh, well, it's kind of expensive in the housing. Great. We're cracking down on the housing. No one's going to be making profits in housing. We got to make a lot of housing as efficient as possible. Great. Well, what next? Well, the kids are playing too many video games.
It'd be kind of nice if the kids had a job after they got out of college.
Well, now here's this article that just came out since we even met last time from the South China Morning Post. It says, after criticism from China, Tencent says, okay, we will limit playing time on our flagship game that makes us the bulk of our money to 1 hour per day for people under 18. Holy cow. Wow. They're really putting the screws on folks. And how long before they bring this to Hong Kong? Because some of the other headlines today is all people are fleeing Hong Kong en masse at the moment. I even watched a video at the Hong Kong airport where they're interviewing everybody leaving. Why are you leaving? Well, we don't have freedoms here. We see the writing on the wall. We know what's coming. It's like, holy shit. They were going to London because the UK gave them is basically giving Hong Kongers a free in to the UK. And they interviewed the people and they're like, yeah, I've lived here for 30 years. I'm a real estate agent. I don't have a job there. I don't really know anyone in the UK, but that's where we're going. We're going to start a new life there. Holy shit. Anyway, but this crackdown on the content that people are consuming inside of TikTok and Twitter in China is, make no mistake, geared around the declining birth rate. And by the way, somebody, and let me go ahead and read. Here's the actual article. Tencent cuts kids' playing time on flagship game Honor of Kings to appease Beijing. Gamers under 18 will have their playing time limited to just 1 hour on regular days and 2 hours on public holidays. How generous. Honor of Kings was the first video game in the world on any platform to average more than 100 million users a day. Tencent Holdings, which runs the world's largest video game business by revenue, has significantly cut down playing time for minors under 18 on its flagship game in a bid to appease Beijing's concerns about gaming addiction among young people in China. Their words were, it causes isolation. Yeah, because of gaming addiction. Because when you're playing with games, you're not playing with each other, as somebody said earlier. Gamers under the age of 18 will have their playing time limited to 1 hour on regular days and 2 hours on public holidays, according to the new rules announced by Tencent. They come into effect on Wednesday. They don't waste time over there. It's not like in 2022. It's like today's Monday. How about Wednesday? Oh, today is Wednesday. That's today. Great. How about now? How about no scheduling in the future? How about now? Okay, great. Now we just started right now. These minors were previously allowed to play Hour of Kings up to 1.5 hours on a regular day and 3 hours on a holiday. And teenagers will also be prohibited from playing games, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to tweet this out so you can read it for yourself. Now, there's more. There's more. Oh, yes.
Tyler, can I say something?
Go ahead.
First of all, it's a question. Naspers is the largest shareholder of Tencent, right?
I don't know. Could be.
From what I know, Naspers is the largest shareholder of Tencent, and JSP, John Simon Purcell, the guy that comes around, he's big over there. If you want to ping him in to comment on this,
do that. So now I said there's more. There's more. There's a guy named Ray Dalio, who I know Ken and Faraz know who Ray Dalio is. Flash your mics if you know who Ray Dalio is. Yep, Ken does know. David knows. Anna Marie knows. Most people don't know. Faraz does know. Ray Dalio.
I know.
Oh, Cheryl knows. Okay. I didn't see your mic flashing. Sorry. Ray Dalio is a multi-billionaire investor, one of the people like Warren Buffett that all the other investors look to because, my God, he just has an incredible sense for how the financial world works. And one of the biggest in the world. Top 10 easily. So, Ray Dalio has a big headline that he would like the world to know. Do you want to know what he said? That the press, and especially in America, and investors in the U.S. have totally misconstrued Chinese crackdown as anti-capitalist, which, by the way, Bloomberg had that headline 24 hours ago. And you heard me in this room ranting and raving. Bloomberg, you fucking idiots. This is about the declining birth rate. This isn't about the power grab. They are doing a power grab in other ways. They're nationalizing the data of all of the big tech companies. That's of concern. That's quite interesting. But this crackdown on ed tech is not that. It's not that at all. That's declining birth rate. So all of Bloomberg and TechCrunch, both namely, there were others, were mistakenly misconstruing that these crackdowns were about a crackdown on capitalism. And that's not the motive here, as you know, if you watch us regularly. So Ray Dalio, who wrote a book recently about China, might know a thing or two of what's going on in China. A huge part of his investments are in China. He probably knows more about China than any investor in the U.S. So he felt it necessary to straighten the record, as I was screaming yesterday, that investors and the press are misconstruing China's crackdown on edtech as anti-capitalist, according to Ray Dalio. Chinese tech and education stocks, right, massively sold off last week after the country continued its crackdown on the sector and stepped up restrictions on its education industry. China's recent regulatory crackdown has been misinterpreted as being anti-capitalist by some Western investors who will, as a consequence, continue to miss out on what's happening in the Asian country, says billionaire investor Ray Dalio. Exactly. They totally misunderstand what's happening. The crackdown on education sector is actually an attempt to reduce inequality in the country, like the inequality to have kids. That's Ray Dalio's own words. As costs spiral in the huge tutoring and enrichment industry, says analyst. And Ray wants to come out and be like, you fucking idiots. You're reporting on shit you don't understand about a... Go ask somebody in Beijing. They got 1.5 billion people over there. Pick up the goddamn phone, get on Skype, and call somebody over there and ask them, why are they cracking down on the edtech? It's not for the reasons you think. And I ranted about this endlessly yesterday, and now Ray Dalio, one of the world's biggest investors, feels it necessary to jump on my side of the fight here. So anyway, yeah, here.
Yeah, but to Tyler, I saw that when Ray came out with it. But the thing is, it's not just the ed tech. Obviously, it was the DD thing. The thing about it, though, and I think he admits it somewhere in what he wrote, is the Chinese government will always put their whatever they perceive as their national interest over shareholder rights.
Correct.
So as a shareholder in a Chinese company, you're always going to have to try to account for that. Are you investing in something that they're going to think is some sort of national imperative for them to control? So
it's a great point. Ken, hold on.
Cheryl,
hold on. Hold. Yeah, you will when I'm done. So Ken, that is a great point. And what I would say to you is, Ray has been investing in China long enough to understand what their next moves are likely to be. And that's why when we have David Chang in here and I say, hey, David, what's the next move? Where's this going? What are they going to crack down on next? And he can tell us. And he has DM'd me the stocks to short. And they've been going down. And so my point is, and he sent them to Cal and I both. And unfortunately, Cal's not here to verify that point, but I can assure you I have no reason to say otherwise.
Yeah, we trust you.
Yeah. So the point, I said it even yesterday when you asked, we talked about this previously. But the point is that people on the ground, this is a huge opportunity because you've got a gigantic force of God moving the markets tremendously quickly in directions that you might be able to predict and pre-anticipate. And if you're on the right side of that prediction, my God, can you make a huge amount of money very quickly? If you had shorted the education companies, you could have made millions of dollars in 2 days. And that's why Ray's like, this is a huge opportunity for investors if you know what the fuck you're doing. If you don't, sit the fuck down on the sideline, get out of the game, put the ball down, take off your jersey and your shoes, and just watch from the audience. But if you know what the fuck is happening, might be the best economic investment opportunity of a lifetime because you have a big player coming in, the government, that can force the market rapidly in very predictable ways. And if you're on the right side of making those predictions, holy shit, can you make a huge ton of money very quickly. Mm-hmm. And by the way, because China's a bull in a china shop. And it's, if you know which way the bull's going, it's going to go take out this room over here. I will bet on it. And then it does. So my point is, in the US, we have a similar game that moves at a snail's pace. Oh, they're going to crack down on Bitcoin. Okay, so a year from now, Bitcoin prices might start going down. Right? We play the same game here. We play it all over the world. And by the way, when you get really good at this game, like George Soros, and then you have enough money to move the market yourself with your money, and you cause the market to move that you bet on yourself, that's the real game. It's all about, can you have influence on the market? And the real big players can acquire enough money to move the markets with press headlines and with policies, and sometimes by causing interesting movements in the markets due to different headlines, due to different policies that they knew were going to happen, and they were on the right sides of those trades. And that's why, to some extent, it's a rigged game. Because you sitting at home playing on Robinhood with $100,000 in your account, how are you going to move the market? You're going to call your friend at TechCrunch and have them write a bad article about Substack? Well, Substack's not publicly traded, but about Google, you think you're going to move Google stock with your tech journalist friend at some tech blog? You can't move the market. The big boys can, and then the big girls can. And that's the game. And China's moving the market huge every day. And if you understand its movements preemptively, predictively, that's a huge blessing to genius investors. This is like rub your hands greedy time. This is like, I want to know where this bull's going to go next, because if I can anticipate, it's a huge opportunity. And that's why when David comes in here, I'm like, David, pretty please. They shut down Bitcoin. That would have been nice to know. And by the way, he did tell us they were going to do that before they did it. And had I known that, I could have shorted Bitcoin from 60,000 to 40,000. So Ray Dalio's right. Like, this is huge opportunity of a lifetime. If you understand what the fuck's going on, if you really know how this game is played. If you don't, take off your shoes, take off your jersey, get off the fucking field. You're embarrassing yourself. Stop tripping over your shoelaces and get out of here. And you're gonna lose all your money.
Tyler, I agree with a lot of your analysis, and sometimes there are more factors than one. So my theory is that despite it's not anti-capitalist, and I looked it up, the article with Ray, and he's right with the ed tech thing, but you also talked about some time ago about Jack Ma and so on. And so my thought was that there is a rising class, a rising elite, the rising economical elite of billionaires in China.
Yep.
And if I were a Chinese citizen sitting down on my sofa, looking TV, watching the show of the CCP when conference, I would think, okay, they create a lot of order and I'm loyal to them. But the real guys are people like Jack Ma, because they run the value creation. They create these companies, these platforms, which are now so powerful all over the world that we have to consider them as attractive role models, for instance. And so I think they have a dilemma, because it's a political elite with not much competence in anything else, only in politics. Yeah. So they see that when 1 billion Chinese people think about them as, do we really need the CCP? Then it will be dangerous. And in the morning, you already talked about an existential threat, but you talked about the existential threat for the CCP in the birth rate problem.
Right.
And I would say it's another factor too. The rising elite of economical successful people who are very attractive as role models. Thank you.
So check this out. In this CNBC post with the video about Ray Dalio, here's the quote. Here it is. I think the fundamental reason behind this crackdown is actually due to the tutoring and education training businesses, social inequality, and behind the drop in the birth rate. Done. I'm done. Hello, I'm done. I'm Tyler. It's been nice, everybody. I told you so.
Question for you, Tyler. Is the downdraft created by the overreaction to the targeted interventions that you describe, bringing other valuable stocks in the long term, Chinese stocks, downward that are better buying opportunities as opposed to the shorting, ones going down? What's being caught in the downdraft that we should pay attention to?
Let's follow the tea leaves. The next paragraph says, high education costs are contributing to a growing reluctance among Chinese couples to have children. There it is. As birth rates in China continue to fall, the government has scrapped fines and restrictions on the number of children people can have. China's tutoring industry is estimated to be worth $120 billion. These measures came as a surprise, but the issues they seek to address are a well-telegraphed national concern in China: how to reduce the financial burdens of parenting to help boost the country's declining birth rate, according to Victoria Mio, Director of Asian Equities at Fidelity International, wrote in a note on Friday. Education has become widely known in China as one of the three big mountains, alongside housing and healthcare, whose spiraling costs in recent years have been a burden for new parents. And then the other quote is by Claudia Wong, partner of education practice at Oliver Wyman, both Chinese women who understand what the fuck is going on. CNBC, hold on, where's my clap? CNBC, you did it.
Tyler, can I make a comment?
You did it, CNBC. You figured it out. It's about the declining birth rate, this whole ed tech crackdown. And Bloomberg, whoever wrote that article in TechCrunch, what the fuck are you thinking?
Yes.
Can I make a comment, Tyler?
Go ahead.
Okay. Singapore is the largest foreign investor in China. The portfolio that Temasek Holding has in China is bigger than Singapore home base. And after the crackdown, the recent crackdown of the Chinese government, they are still bullish about investing in China. Reason being, they have most of the portfolios are focusing on the domestic emerging market of China. So they always so-called invest according to the policies, and they know what areas they should focus on. So like what you say, for those people who understand the China market, I don't think, it is so much of a worry to continue to invest there, but you have to be very careful and do your own risk management because CCP is CCP, they are communists, so the policy can just change in a second.
Yeah,
like
that's great. If you know what they're going to crack down on next, or if you know what they're going to boost up next.
I'm sure the government knows. So.
Of course the government knows.
I'd like to say something, Tyler.
Yes, go ahead, Frost.
And this is more of a question for the genetics people, and of course yourself as well. Let's say, and I'm not going to say China or any other
By the way,
country,
Faraz, you better believe the Chinese are all very interested in genetics and DNA and how that could help the birth rate.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going.
By the way, for those who don't know, Faraz is an investor, and this is how investors think. So you've had a many years of doing this, and basically investors are predictors. That's just what they are. And the ones who can predict correctly make billions, and the ones who can't do not. That's just what it comes down to. Go ahead.
I'm not going to say China just because I'm not. Okay, I have nothing against or
no. This isn't. Country. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. If I was getting right, and this is the way that I would do it, and if I'm correct on the understanding of genetics that I have, right? If I'm some crazy mad scientist who has a control of an entire population, and I'm sitting on generation 1 trying to pick up rules today where generation 2 will be manufacturing the population that I would be genetically editing, I'd have to control their minds and their education, and I'd essentially have to marinate them in a way, right? I'd have to marinate generation 2 to manufacture generation 3.
But I don't quite pick up what you're implying.
Today you've got generation 1 in the country.
Okay.
And you've got generation 2.
You have about 4 generations in the country at the moment.
Right, let's say you've got generation 1, and we're only playing on generation 1, and then you've got generation 2, where the children are being looked at for, priming for genetic engineering by making babies, etc., etc., etc. I would have to essentially marinate generation 2 the way that I need them to in order to genetically manufacture generation 3.
Marinate.
Do you guys understand the question?
No.
Marinate them according to, what time, what they're allowed to watch, what they're allowed to be fed, what they're allowed to be seeing on education, what they're allowed to be seeing on TV, who teaches them, who influences them, etc., etc.
And you think
that's kind of like marination of genetic engineering, right?
In what way?
It's the basic population that you would have access to for the genome, where you would then be able to essentially control them even more to come out with the right product in generation 3. You're creating a product in generation 3. If you think of humans, right?
Yeah, but you're going to create that product in a lab with a microscope and CRISPR.
Right. How? Sorry. Anna Marie, you're saying something?
I was just saying, I think you're leaning into epigenetics beyond just...
Epigenetics, yeah. Anna Marie, your mic's really soft.
So I might be using the wrong terms, but I think what I'm trying to say is when you're trying to get to a particular point that you need to get to in order to have the perfect product that fits you and your country and your nation the way that you want them to, then generation 2, which would be the children today, would essentially have to face certain circumstances. We have to put through a certain education. We have to put through certain collegiate systems. You'd have to initially prime them for the manufacturing of their genome together to get to generation 3. Do you understand what I mean?
I think we'll have to take it offline. It seems like an interesting theory that I'm not picking up. Anyway,
I'm
I'm not
going
sure
to have
to
trouble
what.
explaining it.
I think no doubt they're interested in potentially expanding if a country could expand the age window so that women can continue to have children into
I'll just
45,
open up on it.
that would be fantastic. I don't know how you're going to do that by controlling what content they watch.
There's sovereigns that have startups and all forms of companies that are looking at creating genome banks, and some of the best people in the world are looking at doing this, right?
Yes.
Now, if you're looking at preparing genome banks, where would that go? What would that give you?
Healthier. You would start to optimize. I think what they're going to do is start optimizing. Well, they're already starting to incentivize parents to have kids. They don't yet have they don't have even the luxury of being specific about who they financially incentivize. They're going to financially incentivize anyway.
They pick the best product to match, right? They pick the best product to match.
It's too early to even go there. It's way too early to get there. Right at this point, they just need more kids. What they could probably do, potentially, and then and John might be somebody who might know this. Could they somehow make it so that most people have twins instead of single children, like the normal,
like the panda,
like pandas, exactly.
Like the panda IVF.
Yes,
that's a prime. Then now you kind of get to what I'm trying to say. You could get generation 1 to manufacture perfectly generation 2, and then by the time you arrive at generation 3, you've got the perfect population that fits your needs for the economy or the country. Does that make sense?
That's a fascinating question, Tyler, and the answer is it would be unprecedented, but CRISPR is unprecedented. And so if there are some levers to pull to cause monozygotic twins, those that originate from the same egg, monozygote, that if there were genes that controlled that tendency, because clearly there are in the multiple parity births all across the animal kingdom, dogs, cats, everything. If there's a gene that controlled that and they could manipulate that, the answer would be yes.
Then you could double the birth rate quite quickly,
or triple or quadruple.
Right. It would likely be just as easy to triple or quadruple. You could have them be like, everyone's going to have triplets now. It's just going to be a thing.
And by the time you get to generation 3, you run essentially 2/3 of the population in the world. This is where I'm going with it. You're priming. This is what I was trying to say.
It's wild.
And thank you, John, for that. So you're priming generation 2 to manufacture generation 3 in the size, faculty, et cetera, that you need it to essentially, let's say, run the world. I'm done. Thank you.
Yeah, clearly, it does occur naturally in humans, but in other species where a typical litter is 8 to 10,
there you go, making
there's
litters.
clearly genetic control.
Here we go. Who wants to do
it? Well, maybe you guys a less techie way to look at it. And I'm sorry if my speaker's still bad because I'm in the car. But I think expanding the age range for which safe and viable pregnancies is, your head's going in the right place there, Tyler. But I think they're legitimately having conversations about trying to socially impact, engineer, divert, get women to rethink the delay that has become quite commonplace now in pregnancy in China. So trying to if you're trying to push women toward thinking about pregnancy and getting pregnant sooner, then your natural leap, like say you're an innovator or you're an algorithm person, would be going towards like, how do you get people to meet and get into committed relationships sooner? Then you get into dating algorithms, and how do you match up, people that maybe there you could really start social engineering, right? Well,
it's Gattaca.
Maybe it's Gattaca, so you can hear my husband in the background. But I think that's where there would be a lot of opportunity to think about how do you bring people together? How do you push towards committed, established relationships earlier in life, so that that this thinking around having 2 or 3 children, but you need to start sooner, it becomes part of the norm. And they've been talking about this for actually quite almost a decade now.
But one thing I want to mention, Anna Marie, because if people get married too young, right, there's a very high rate of divorce. So you want to have happy kids as well. Actually, I have a prediction. Maybe the next move that China will make is to make IVF free of charge.
Yeah, that's could be it.
I
think
was going to say that if they don't do something about their healthcare system, which is also a large determinant of how many children people have, people will still not want children. You have to be able to afford them. And pushing people to have more children is pushing people back into poverty. And I'm sure that's not what the Chinese government intends.
I think when you kind of look at how they behave, what I fear is they're going to look at some of the data and show, that the Western world is facing with the, later pregnancies, older mothers. And unfortunately, I think they're going to probably start infringing on the rights of women's upward mobility. Basically limiting how much mobility women can have in their careers to basically force them into having childhood as their main focus. So I don't know. I hope I'm not right, but I think that's where we might go.
Okay.
Yeah, that's so dystopian.
Okay, next article here. Elroy Air, which is building autonomous drones to transport cargo over long distances, raises $40 million from Lockheed Martin. And Dubai-based buy now, pay later service Tabby raises $50 million at a $300 million valuation, led by Global Founders Capital, which I think Faraz and I talked about, I don't know, a month ago when I was like, who's doing buy now, pay later in Dubai? Because if there's not one, I want to go do it. And here they are a month later raising $50 million at a $300 million valuation. And Kaisho says it will shut down its Zen video sharing app. Who cares? Mexico City-based Yedu is a B2B software and payment startup, raises $20 million. Okay, overview of this separate article from Washington Post. It says an overview of the severe shortage of cybersecurity workers across the U.S. government and private sector, despite an unprecedented slate of hacking threats. And there's a very simple answer for why there's a shortage of cybersecurity workers for the government and even the private sector. And that very simple answer is because, yes, indeed, there is a huge unprecedented slate of hacking threats. And these hackers know how to write code. These cybersecurity folks are engineers, developers. They know how to write software. And they could go work as an employee at the government for a fixed salary, or they could go work at a private company as an employee for a fixed salary, or they could create a startup and write some code and sell that code to 1 million fucking companies and make $1 billion fucking dollars. And that's exactly what they're fucking doing. And that's why there's a shortage of them to go work at your stupid fucking government agency or your stupid private company. Do you get it now? Do you get it now? They're not fucking stupid. They know how to write code. They're not bakers making cakes. They are code monkeys. They know how to click and clack on the keyboard and write code. So they're going to do the thing that makes the most money. They're not going to, if they did take the job at the government, by default, they're not the people you want working there anyways. The ones you really want are the ones that are making the cybersecurity apps that the companies use. Dear God. Dear God.
Also, they're taking foreign government jobs, and I'll leave it at
that. For us, dropping some hot comments. Oh boy. Any governments you want to name for us?
None.
No.
None.
Okay. So
he wants to be politically correct.
Yes.
Stay out.
And we're not going to. Well, no. He just wants to stay out of prison. Yeah. So the next one up is report finds attacks on 5 Southeast Asian telcos, which we read this article when we were here 7 hours ago. And it turns out that these 5 Southeast Asian telcos that were hacked are in Indonesia. Remind me, Cheryl. Vietnam and one more. Philippines.
Philippines.
So And it turns out that these 5 telcos were hacked and have been hacked, and the hack has been in place, and it's espionage. It's state espionage by. This gives us a fantastic opportunity to play our favorite new game show called Tech News Jeopardy. 5 Southeast Asian telcos from Vietnam, Philippines, and Indonesia have been hacked since 2017, and the hackers have been listening to the conversations of CEOs at the top companies in those 3 countries since 2017. The question is, which country is doing the hacking? Is it A, Canada, B, Argentina, or C, China?
China.
China, obviously.
No brainer. Let's go to if you have an Olympic for cyber hacking.
Or have the actual Olympics actually been hacked? And if so, who did it? So yes, the answer is China.
At least make it difficult. Put Russia in there.
You're right. I could have made it more difficult and put Russia. In this case, it was China. You're right.
So I have 2 now. I'm a leader.
Oh my God, Messi's in first place now. The score is 2-1-1-1-1-1 with Messi leading.
Yeah.
There you go, Messi.
So what is it gonna be my award?
You want a job as gold medal. Can you work as a cybersecurity expert at a government agency because they're hiring?
No, thank
Messi, you want the real goal or the digital goal?
Yeah, you want.
There you go.
There you go.
There
so
you go. That's better.
Interestingly, Match Group, which owns Tinder, had a bad quarter. They just did their quarterly reports, and they didn't meet street expectations. Lyft did also their quarterly earnings report. They're up 125% year over year. That's quite good. And 26% over the last quarter. That's also quite good. And so they have that. Robinhood stock is up 24%. Holy cow. That's quite a one-day move.
You know why?
Please help us.
Can I tell you why?
Please tell us.
Because Jim Cramer thinks that it's
the Cramer effect.
The Cramer effect.
And then we've got Apple rolls out 3 new AMD Pros. Who cares? New graphics cards. Microsoft tells employees it will require proof of vaccination to get back into the office in September. Researchers were able to quickly circumvent security protections of a laptop that followed virtually every NSIT recommendation, including TPM and UEFI Secure Boot, which that's geek speak. And let me translate that for you. Everything's hacked. Everything you own is hackable, very easily hackable. That's all you need to know. Let me translate that for you. That the researchers were able to quickly circumvent security protections of a laptop that followed virtually every NIST recommendation, including TPM and UEFI Secure Boot. Again, geek speak in the English, simple street English. Y'all been hacked. You're hacked. That's what that means. I'm just going to make it real simple. The next headline is about Citizen.
Anyone find it, sorry, Tyler, anyone find it a little odd that October 3rd is the date of the eviction moratorium expiring and October 4th is the fact that Microsoft wants them back in with vaccinations?
I have a theme song for you, Faraz. The next headline is about Citizen, the reporting app, but I think we covered this story yesterday in this room, did we not, at this time zone?
Yes, you did.
We did. Good. So we don't need to do that one again. And
when Pentagon was also in lockdown. Yes,
the Pentagon did get locked down. Some guy stabbed somebody, a police officer, with a knife and then got shot. Which draws into question if the headline from 2 days ago that the Pentagon believes it can predict the future with its AI systems. Clearly it cannot. So, into the more interesting headlines, like Elon Musk's photo showing the SpaceX rolling out its Starship rocket booster. Holy cow, is this thing tremendous, from CNBC. I'm tweeting that now to the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. Thank you, Radeja, for that one. And Normy just sent one in from The Guardian, and the headline reads, China shuts down transport as it battles worst COVID outbreak in months. Yeah, well, it's going to get a lot worse because it's a whole lot more infectious, at least twice as much as from what I can tell. John can correct us. But every province has advised residents not to leave as flights are canceled and Beijing suspends more than a dozen rail lines. And that is how you fight COVID. As Thailand did, you fight it geographically, not philosophically, not politically, metaphysically, scientifically, or whatever way you thought it should be controlled. It's controlled geographically. That's how the virus spreads. That's how the virus moves from one place to another. It's called geography. And you need to control it geographically. That's what Thailand did, is we locked not people into their homes, but stopping people from moving from city to city. So you have a red zone, and the people in that red zone cannot leave the red zone until it clears up. And once it clears up, it turns orange and then yellow and then green and then can open again. And then everyone can go in and out of that zone. Everyone outside of that zone, this life is normal. If you're in a red zone, people aren't allowed in or out of that red zone. It's quite simple. It's childlike. It's that, but it is that simple because you can control the virus in a geography from going in or out of that geography. It's actually quite simple. But you have to have the political will to do that. And it boggles my effing mind why Thailand can do that, why Asian countries can do that, and why non-Asian countries cannot.
And you can add New Zealand and Australia and Singapore and Taiwan to the list of countries that have proven that it's effective, but the political will is clearly not evident globally.
Yeah, it's weird. It was tried in a couple cities in the New England area where they told people, no, you can't come in here because there's too much COVID in here. And, come back in 42 hours or whatever, it's like, and there weren't riots.
And there's a misunderstanding that, these lockdowns would devastate the economy. But in fact, if there were an effort to have global coordination and have a 1 month isolation with contact tracing and quarantining, we could have, it's a little bit late now, but we could have arrested this thing quite some time ago if there were global collaboration and political will. But we're not living in that era right now.
So
I need to. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Chris.
I need to find the article. Sorry, Tyler. I need to find the article, but they said Singapore had a strain that literally disappeared from the face of the planet because their lockdown was so effective. And
no, that's no Singapore strain. Is fake news, and India apologized for that.
No, I'm saying that you guys had everywhere you go, a strain pops up because the variation or the mutations happen so often. But what I'm saying is Singapore had a strain that emerged, but because you guys were so good at locking down, it never escaped and it literally died, within 2 weeks is what they were saying.
Okay.
And I'll find the article.
But they did the same thing Thailand did, which was no one's allowed in or out of the country without very thorough testing and screening. And if there's any chance that you have it, you have to quarantine for 14 days and be tested again before you're allowed into the country. And then that way you effectively can stop anyone from bringing it into your country, which Thailand did for over a year. So next one is in Russia's Far East. Tech pioneers dream of innovation hub on what they call Cyborg Island. This is from the Washington Post. I just tweeted it out to the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. On Russia's Pacific shores, the Kremlin is trying to build a beachhead among the Asian tech powers. Come on, Washington Post, don't paywall me now. To see Russia's ambitions for its own version of Silicon Valley head about 5,600 miles east of Moscow. Vladivostok.
Vladivostok.
There it is, Vladivostok. Thank you. And bionic arms and blue-eyed bots, how Russia aims to nurture a tech hub in its Far East. Well, they tried to do this outside of Moscow before, called Skolkovo. And it was the Kremlin trying to inspire, their own little tech hub, which is something I happen to know a thing or two about. And it didn't work. It's way too top heavy. And you need grassroots, bottom up, organic growth. And there's ways to do it. I happen to have the recipe. I don't know that would be interested in working with Russia to do it there, unless it was about everyone has their price though. If $1 billion, we could make something happen. Which, by the way, is less than they spent on the failed mission with Skolkovo. So they're willing to commit the money. And now it didn't work, and now they're trying it again on the other coast in the Far East, closer to Asia. I got news. It ain't going to work. There's an actual recipe for how to do these things. Give me a call if you got $1 billion. Big Vladdy Daddy. You can find me here in Clubhouse. And we covered the Elon Musk photos of the SpaceX rolling out the Starship rocket booster. Truly tremendous. That one. A Stockholm-based Checkin.com acquires Estonian identity verification startup called GetID for 8 million euros. So who is this mysterious Stockholm-based Checkin.com acquiring an Estonian identity verification startup called GetID? And what are they going to do? What might these guys be up to? I wonder. The Swedish tech company that changes how people all over the world check in with services online has just entered into agreement to acquire Estonian startup GetID. Check-in ID was founded in 2017, and this acquisition is the first step of the company's strategy to add technologies and strong teams by acquisitions within areas that strengthen the group's already leading SaaS software for check-ins. The purchase price corresponds with the enterprise value of about 8 million. The acquisition is mainly paid in newly issued shares of Check-in Group, with a minor part paid in cash. And Get-in that they just acquired was founded in 2019, currently has annualized revenue of 500,000. And what else do we need to know here? GetID is a rapidly growing tech company with a fantastic team that is relatively short time frame has built innovative and leading software based for AI for image recognition applied within face matching and reading of physical documents. And that's the two steps that you need to build your identification system, which, by the way, Stripe is doing exactly that as well. You hold up a piece of paper, which is your passport or your state ID, and it scans it. It does your face recognition, matches the two, registers all of that with your account with them, and they become kind of a digital passport to logging into sites, just like Apple ID, just like Google's new what they call Google Identity Services, and just like Stripe's own, what Stripe calls Stripe Identify. So what an interesting coincidence that all of these identity verification startups are popping up. Truly interesting.
I say that I think probably is the authority on identity verification at this rate. It's become a category in itself in the investment thesis for many investors, I think. Between Nicholas, yourself, and others in the room, this area is getting very, very hot indeed. So we're going to see a lot more deals.
I'm always curious, Mabwana, how come your mic is always so hollow?
You sound very far from your mic, Mabwana.
Is it?
That's it. There you go. There it is.
I pulled it closer on my mouse pad.
Oh, okay. Very good.
On my desktop, because I'm using Club Deck, but I'm still a rookie on it. So I was just saying that, this sector is going to get really, really hot. We're seeing so much interest. I actually have a bet in this first. I never brought it up in this room, but I brought it up in the fintech room. A company called Smile Identity. Smile.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with Stripe.
In
Africa that's doing this. It's a similar thing. I don't want to confuse Tyler's thread in previous weeks, but it's
all good.
I'm glad to see this getting more attention, and I think globally it's going to be a hot sector
for sure.
And I don't know anywhere else in the world. There's no analyst I know of that writes anything close to what we're discussing on this room on this topic.
Yeah, GetIDs, the company that just got acquired called GetIDs, software identifies users in a matter of seconds with a frictionless and GDPR compliant solution based on AI-driven image recognition for document verification and face matching. The solution identifies over 900 passports and types of documents and supports more than 190 countries. That's pretty much all of them, creating a truly global identification service. Okay. I'll see if I ping them in tomorrow to give us a little, see if we can squeeze out a little lemon juice out of that lemon. They can tell us a little more about stuff we might not already know. Hong Kong online news outlet called Initium announced it was relocating to Singapore on Tuesday, citing fading press freedoms, the first local media to quit the financial hub as authorities crack down on dissent. Well, no, Apple Daily was the first local media to quit, but not due to their own choice.
Is Jane moving anywhere?
Jane, I need to chat with. Let's ping in Jane, by the way. Did you see her tweets recently?
Not really. I think she should better move somewhere.
Is she expressed that she's suicidal on her Twitter account, which is quite concerning.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'll go check.
Can
you pin her in?
Yeah, I just did. And then the next article is from Hong Kong FP, which is Hong Kong Free Press, which probably Hong Kong's most loved journalist outlet. I demand 100% freedom. Hong Kong political artist Casey Wong leaves for Taiwan, citing Crackdown. Political artist Casey Wong has left Hong Kong for Taiwan, citing shrinking space for artistic expression. The 51-year-old left the city 17 days ago. And I think there was another Hong Kongish related one to keep on the theme. Maybe not. So we'll go into the next one here. This one in Finland, a groundbreaking global autonomous train developed project in Finland is moving on to its test phase. The aim of the initiative is to create completely new railway transportation services and to even double the amount of railway transport. So thank you to Poppy for that one. Just tweeted that out to the Twitter account at TNATW. And then the world's most powerful tidal turbine starts to export power to the grid. Orbital Marine Power's O2, the world's most powerful tidal turbine, has commenced grid connection power generation at the European Marine Energy Center in Orkney. That's a perfect opportunity for Dan to jump in with a green tech headline.
I'll have some for you a little bit later.
Okay.
But that's the interesting thing about that, by the way, is how long will it last in the ocean? It's a very harsh environment. So it's very exciting to see. People have been trying for a really long time, but they always break down. But hopefully they've worked that out.
Yep. DHL Express is buying electric cargo planes from Aviation is the name of the company. And DHL will buy 12 electric cargo planes from Aviation for its U.S. delivery operations. And now I think we've covered pretty much every major transport company in the West, like DHL and the others, are all loading up on electric planes. Tesla to make its first Texas-built test Model Y next week, 1 month ahead of schedule, and 1 month ahead of Giga Berlin. And this is the good news about this means the Texas factory is rolling out its first car 1 month ahead of schedule. And that's particularly good news for me personally and anyone else who's waiting for the Tesla Cybertruck, because that's what this factory was essentially made for, is to make the Cybertrucks. And now the factory looks like it's ready because the headline is that they're rolling out a car next week. Fantastic.
What do you think of Elon's broadcasting that the Cybertrucks might cost $1 million a piece to manufacture? What was his intent of that? And
I didn't
what
see
do you
that.
think about
Is that on his Twitter account?
It was a week or two ago.
It was just for some, like, if he didn't have a big production, like just if you build like 1,000 models.
Ah, right. If he didn't have all the factory whiz-bang tools that he has, at scale. That's interesting. The next one's from the LA Times, that Biden to announce a new temporary eviction moratorium in some places for Oz. So it looks like that it says Fed moratorium on evictions to replace the one that expired over the weekend. Takes effect.
But Tyler, let me give you that some context, okay? Some places will now cover 90% of the country. He's trying to get around the U.S. Supreme Court ruling that basically said the CDC doesn't have this power. And he even said at a press conference just yesterday, he thinks that what he's doing probably is still not legal, but he's going to wait for the courts to do something because he wants to give the states that are sitting on $43 billion that the Fed just gave them to deal with this problem, to basically help out the tenants in arrears or help out the landlords, whatever, that they haven't been able to get the money out of the door because of bureaucracy. So he's basically just trying to buy himself 30 days or 60 days, and that's what he's doing.
So what happens if there's a window between, what is it? What's the date? October 3rd?
Right.
And then when this new one goes into effect, what if there's a gap and everyone gets evicted on October 4th and the new one starts?
First of all, first of all, there's already a gap because there's like a day or two gap that's already happened, but they don't happen that quick because you live in the United States. I mean, depending on your jurisdiction, evictions take time. The courts are slow. So basically, there might be some landlords who very quickly served an eviction notice in the 24 48 hour period. But so by the way, it's a non perfect solution, but it was the whole policy was messed up because you can't fall behind 5 months or 8 months in payments and think that people are going to be able to ever catch up, because they still technically owe for money. So I mean, it's a bad public policy, and they're deep in the hole.
In summary, there's a huge amount of homelessness expected. If you look at Berkshire Hathaway owns most of the trailer parks. If someone wants to make a stock play there, that would be what I would be doing.
Funny enough, my dearest friend, out of all my friends, I consider my friend Tim Nikolaev to be my dearest friend, started buying trailer parks, a decade ago. He might be the largest trailer park holder in the Midwest. And this was way before, and it was the only thing he wanted to get into real estate, but he couldn't buy a house. So he bought a trailer park. And he just continued, and then he realized, wow, I'm making good money on this thing. He just kept going, and all the money he made, he just put it back into buying more trailer parks. And now it's like playing Monopoly. He's just expanded. He's like the trailer park king of, the Midwest. It's kind of wild. And now that this is all happening, and he used to tell me all the time, he's like, what's great about this is it's depression proof. Matter of fact, the worse the economy gets, the better this business does. I was like, kind of genius. And boy, is he in the right spot.
Who's bought the highest stake in worst loans and NPLs from all the major mortgage players and all the major banks in the United States? It's BlackRock.
NPLs mean non-performing loans. If people don't know it,
and BlackRock is rumored to be coming in and basically paying over list price for everything that comes on the market. And that's just rumor. I don't have any proof. I don't have any receipts, so to speak. But that's kind of the rumbling on the street.
What was that, Chris?
The rumbling on the streets is that BlackRock has been coming in and paying over listing price on a lot of homes. I don't have any actual receipts, but that's the rumblings on the internet.
Correct.
But here's the little kicker with that rent moratorium program. Most people don't know that those that were on Section 8 or were low income, their landlords were getting checks the whole pandemic to pay their rent. And so there's the people that are middle income or do not qualify as low income in the United States, where this gap really hits and the payment is needed. But I specifically know people that are on like the federal programs, which are like Section 8 rent programs and stuff like that, where they were told during the pandemic, the portion you typically pay, which is a small percentage, you no longer have to pay. And the government is comping your whole rent and sending it to your landlord. And that happened during the pandemic and continues.
Okay. If you were on Section 8, you're already on Section 8. So, I mean, Section 8's a permanent program. So they were getting that paid anyway. I mean, Section 8's a subsidy, if you're on it, that existed pre-COVID.
No, but see, what you don't understand about Section 8 is you have different percentages that you pay as a program participant. So everybody doesn't get 100% of their rent paid. They may pay $18. They may pay $200. They may pay $400. Right. No, and so, yeah. So that little nuance actually matters because rent did go up and continues to go up despite the fact that Americans are in a pandemic still.
Okay.
So if you're not in Section 8, was your landlord still getting payments from the government during your eviction moratorium, or has the landlord been suffering along it?
So it depends on if you're renter. So certain states had rental programs that the renters could apply for to get that payment paid for them. If they applied for it, then yes, and they received it, then yes. But if they never applied and they just went off kind of like a squatter and just sat there, then this is where this issue becomes a greater issue for the landlord and the property owner.
But the problem
Tyler,
is now on the $43 billion, many people did apply and they've only allocated 5 or 10% of it. So there are people who have applied who probably should have gotten it, and it's being held up in paperwork. And that's the reason for this problem right now.
So, Tyler, if you want to tie it back to tech, there's another interesting trend that might be occurring in the future, which is the big tech companies asking the employees to, maybe work remotely, and even live wherever they want, etc. You might have a uptick in the failed trend of co-living and co-working. Remember when that came out, co-living?
Yes,
but co-living failed and co-working. Yeah, so there's an uptick there as well, where you might have co-living, co-working happening together for tech teams, etc. So that's another interesting trend to follow.
That there's already such things in Japan for many years already. So they quite house sharing, and like what you mentioned, they have co-living and co-working space in one building as well. It's quite a big trend since I think 2-3 years ago. Ever since Airbnb come into Japan, many people have been revolving around this, rental businesses. Thanks to Airbnb, they can leverage on the platform.
Okay, so the next headline.
Were there also mortgage programs? What happened to people who owned their home?
There were some forbearance programs. There's about a little under 2 million people who are in forbearance that are also impacted by this moratorium being lifted. So theoretically, their lender could now foreclose on them. So there is some of that too. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Let me let me talk about that too. So the forbearance programs,
real quick, because we got to get back into the headlines. Go ahead.
Yeah, don't allow them to foreclose immediately. They actually were given long periods where they don't have to pay at all, and it's not you have to catch up your payments for some of those programs. But go ahead, Tyler.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. And the next one is that we were just talking about how the Chinese government's cracking down on the video games, and now the video games are pushing back. The headline from South China Morning Post is China's video game crackdown state-backed industry group plays down regulatory moves as narrow and targeted. The China Game Publishers Association said games are not fierce floods or savage beasts and that they can benefit society. The group's words countered a news article that called games opium for the masses, pushing down gaming stocks over fears of fresh crackdowns. And so now the video games union is pushing back, saying no, that we're not the bad guys, that games can be good for people. Good luck with that one is my advice for you. The Pentagon, according to the times.co.uk, says the Pentagon uses AI to predict enemy moves days in advance. The U.S. military is testing an advanced AI system that it hopes can predict an enemy's next move days before it actually occurs, although not on its own campus in North Virginia, where a policeman was stabbed right in front of the Pentagon 24 hours ago. So maybe apply those same AI prediction, technologies to the, people attacking your headquarters. Although maybe, just a thought. Thai billionaire, not just any Thai billionaire. This is not only the wealthiest man in Thailand, he's the fourth wealthiest man in Asia. He controls all of China's chicken and rice and shrimp, which are the three biggest exports, owns all of the 7-Elevens, which itself is impossible to comprehend because 7-Elevens are on every corner in Thailand. And there are many corners that have two 7-Elevens. That's how many 7-Elevens there are in Thailand. So, and 7-Elevens where everybody's money ends up at the end of the day. His name's Donan, CP Group. He's wildly famous, as you can imagine, incredibly tied to China. And the headline is that the Thai billionaire to build an herbal drug factory to fight COVID-19. CP Group's Donan vows remedy in 100 days to treat symptoms in mild cases, which would be incredibly useful right now. But John, are we aware of any kind of herbal remedies for COVID, like an herbal remdesivir or something like that?
There have been many proposed, but getting hard data on it is incredibly difficult because they're all what are called observational studies that don't have any controls. That just there's not a lot of good science on it. More importantly than any herbal remedy is managing the basics of good health, healthy eating, sleeping, exercise, and social interaction. Those things do help your immune system. Eating lots of variety in your plant-based diet makes your immune system much healthier. So there are some very significant lifestyle choices you can make to improve and enhance and maintain a healthy, resilient immune system. But as far as specific supplements, it's hard to find any good prospective controlled trials that can disambiguate just a ton of noise that constitutes who we are as humans and immune systems.
Yeah,
there's one very popular one from Germany that I actually I received from my friend as well. Sisters Tea, CISTUS, is pretty popular in Germany since the COVID started.
Okay. Next headline is, this is a wild one you absolutely have to see with your own eyes. Facebook researchers reveal a reverse pass-through VR prototype for eye contact outside of the headset. And so what this is it's a guy wearing a VR headset, but his eyes, there's screens on the outside of the VR headset. So when you look at him with his headset, you see his eyes. So now he can see you through the headset because there's a camera on the outside of the headset, and you can see his eyes just as if he wasn't wearing the headset. So now the VR headset is now an AR headset, and you can walk around your town all day with a VR headset on, and everyone can see your eyes as if you weren't wearing the headset. And you have to see what this looks like. It's going to blow your mind. It's at the Twitter account, TNATW. And then the next big headline is that student IDs on iPhone and Apple Watch are coming to Canada. Simple as that. And that means your ID is tied to it's kind of a campus issued ID. It's a formal ID, and many places recognize student IDs as an alternative to state IDs. So again, Apple's getting into the state ID game. And Facebook is reportedly trying to analyze encrypted data without deciphering it, because everyone's trying to encrypt their data so that Facebook can't use the data from your iPhone and your Android phone to enhance their ad network. Because Tim doesn't like Mark no more. He's taking his ball and he's going home. But now Facebook is reportedly trying to analyze this encrypted data without deciphering it. And the approach could bolster Facebook's ad targeting efforts. Yeah, well, it could. It would stop Facebook from losing that data that they previously had. Google leaks unannounced Nest security cameras on its own online store, and now you can see them from the tweet I'm tweeting out. I just twatted on Twitter. These security devices would reveal or rival Amazon's when released. And they look really cool, actually, I gotta say. Kind of a beautiful suite of products that Google Nest is putting out. Google Leaks announced Nest security cameras on its own online store. We might have gotten a sneak peek at the new Nest devices. And next up is Facebook's WhatsApp rolls out option for disappearing photos. We covered that. Thank you, Poppy. And 46 million Americans now own Bitcoin. So it's about 15% of Americans as crypto goes mainstream. Well, 15%, I guess that's mainstream. In a survey conducted by the New York Digital Investment Group, about 75% of the respondents say they wanted to learn more about Bitcoin. Okay. Arrival van completes first autonomous ride without a driver road tests to follow. And this is a really incredibly beautiful autonomous electric van, which, oh boy, could you convert that into a home in a heartbeat. You have to see this vehicle. And it's bigger than a Dodge Sprinter van. Quite a bit bigger, but smaller than a motorhome, kind of the perfect size for van life, like really the perfect size. And it's autonomous, so you could sleep in the back while you go to your next location.
If it's under like 22 feet, I think be able to be parked in your driveway, which is a huge issue if you own an RV, right? You can't really park them anywhere.
Yeah, this one appears to be just about parkable on city streets and driveways and whatnot. And parking's traditional park, maybe a little too big for traditional parking spaces, but it's really incredibly stylish. It looks like a Tesla of vans, and it's autonomous. And all you got to do is electrify the thing, like cover the roof with solar panels. Next thing you know, you're sleeping all day while you drive to your next location. And then the Washington Post has an article about something called Perspective, a new world. Amazon's New World wants you to walk miles to see your friends. New World has one major flaw, but you can fix it if you're just starting out. I just tweeted this out, and my journey, this is written by Shannon Liao, staff writer at Washington Post, and it says, my journey through Amazon's first massively multiplayer online role-playing game called New World began innocently enough. I played through the first 5 quests, killing corrupted creatures and crafting basic tools. I prepared to meet my friend Andrea, who is playing with me on a voice call. Hey, where are you? That was the beginning of our problems. We slowly realized that New World spawns new players at 4 points across the game's massive map, meaning friends who want to play together might have to quest for hours before meeting up. There's a workaround to this problem, but not one that the game tells new players about. And it looks like a new updated version of Myst, but for multiplayer, basically. But it looks pretty cool.
Tyler?
Yeah.
So I was driving and I heard you mention the Oculus, where you could see the eyes.
Yep.
So if I might just add a little bit more information.
Go ahead.
As you know, Oculus has this feature called pass-through where you're able to actually look through the headset and actually see like your real world environment. Right. But the problem is that the people on the outside can't look at you seeing them. So that's the one problem they're trying to solve, is to allow people to actually see your eyes and see the direction that you're actually looking at, and if you're looking at them or not. That's just one little fact that I want to add to that.
Yeah, but how would they know if you're looking at them or if you're looking at porn?
That's a good question.
Back to the drawing board.
Or even worse, the deep faked version of you that's been superimposed over porn.
Yeah, no. But I mean,
you know how they say when you don't want the butterflies when you're public speaking.
Oh yeah, I'm watching. Naked? Yeah, it's not. I'm not only watching you naked. I'm watching you all. Anyway, the next article is from Forbes, and the headline is "Crypto Provision is in Infrastructure Bill May Force Bitcoin Miners and Blockchain Companies to Flee the U.S." As I said 2 days ago. Welcome, Forbes. Welcome to the conversation. Yeah, I said exactly that 48 hours ago, that the provisions in the infrastructure bill, which basically is going to force everyone to become completely compliant, completely on board, completely tracked. You have to do 1099s on every user, revealing their verified names and locations and whatnot.
Jean-Francois?
Yeah. And then, or if you're not going to do that, it's going to force you off the grid and you're going to go fully decentralized Satoshi Nakamoto mode. You're going to have to come up with a new identity. You might even have to scrap whatever project you have if you have any investors or registered yourself as any kind of government corporate entity, an LLC, or what have you, an S Corp or a B Corp or whatever it is, and start over as a DAO. It's one or the other. And it's like I said, people are going to have to move out of the US, and you might want to prefer a location that has a what do they call it? Extradition treaties with the US, Moldova, which we found out was Russia, Moldova, South Sudan, and one other.
Cannot remember.
I imagine you could go to the Philippines. I'm sorry, the Palestine. You could go to Palestine. You could.
The other one was the Chad.
Chad was the other one. That's right. So, who's up for moving to Chad? Interesting. But yeah, they came to the same conclusion I did. It says a relatively hidden provision in the $1 trillion bill plans to help pay for new roads and bridges by making tax collection of crypto activities more feasible. But yeah, people are going to have to move if they want to stay unregulated, so to speak, as many hardcore Bitcoin folks do, or crypto folks do. It's not Bitcoin. So the SEC, kind of related, the head of the SEC, Gensler, signals a pathway for a Bitcoin ETF, but with tough rules. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commissioner Chair Gary Gensler is signaling a pathway for approving a Bitcoin ETF, exchange-traded fund. That means you could buy shares in a Bitcoin ETF, which is a fund based on Bitcoins, and that would make it incredibly simple on Robinhood to buy shares of Bitcoin and sell shares of Bitcoin rather than actually going through the hassle of buying Bitcoin and all of that, jazz. And that would be huge. That could have tremendous upside pressure on Bitcoin. So,
since you mentioned Robinhood, did you notice that trading was suspended today because of a huge pump?
No. Which one? What got pumped today? Wall Street.
I think CNBC reported it. Wall Street or CNBC. Yeah,
but Wall Street Bets is usually the source of such large community pumps, and that's a whole new phenomena on Wall Street. Essentially, this is social media meets Wall Street via Robinhood, which is
and there's another reason. Apparently, there's also option trading started on Robinhood today. Typically, it takes a while after you go public before there's the options. There's options on the stock, so now it's easier to speculate now.
So, but Ken,
Tyler, I just DM you the article.
Okay, about Robinhood pausing trading.
Yep.
And
trading its own shares, though.
Oh, trading of Robinhood shares.
Robinhood stock app trading app suspends trading its own shares. Is the title.
Yeah, it's a stock that just went public. It's just their. It's their.
They just IPO'd. Yeah. So because it went up 88%.
Yes.
Holy shit!
They're pumping it.
Because Jim Cramer called it a meme stock, and also options started trading on it. I think maybe today or yesterday, because you don't get options on an IPO stock for a while. Because there's they have to be traders after. Okay, so now there's more easier ways to speculate on Robinhood stock than there was a few days ago.
So it's the same Reddit crowd that pumped AMC and GameStop and yada yada.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think
you have to look at the flows. You have to look at the flows. Based on that, you probably have a lot of hedge funds taking a huge amount of bets as well. Ken, I don't know if you have access to the flows, but you probably have a huge amount of hedge funds. Sorry,
I was going to say, I was also surprised that the Woods fund ARK also invested. I'm surprised by that.
I tried to log into my Robinhood account and going on.
So here it says in this article, the sharp rise appears to be for the same reasons, belief that large investors were shorting the stock due to its poor initial performance in the IPO, which it did on the first opening day. It had poor performance. And so that leads what Wall Street Bets is kind of a one-trick pony, is they find things that they think that the big guys are shorting and they try and short squeeze them. And so it appears to be the similar pattern.
There's one difference now between this and AMC and GameStop. They're guessing, on how many stocks have been shorted, because they only publish the open short positions once a month. So I haven't looked. My guess is there's not an official open short position listed on Robinhood like there was on the other stocks. There will be in a month or so, but whatever. But I don't know if there is now.
I actually did tweet it, Tyler, a bit earlier that the stock was rising because they sold their own people. I don't know if there is any short or anything like that. The article doesn't say that, but it does say that they sold thousands of their own existing, I guess, clients or shares or things like that.
Okay, I'm tweeting this out to the Twitter account so people can read for themselves. Thank you, Cheryl, for sharing that. And for whoever jumped in with that, that's something to...
That's Ken, right?
Ken, thank you.
That's me. Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but whoever just spoke, the stock that was being sold, that everyone's selling, that those are shares not being sold short. Those are existing, pre-IPO investors finally cashing out. Those are those shares. Those shares are not being shorted. They're just initial investors, taking their profit.
Okay.
Right.
How,
Right.
how
I
about
think that's
Jason?
what the article I tweeted say those were like shareholders, existing shareholders, not shorting. Yeah.
That's my point. Yes.
Great.
Okay, here we go. So
Ready for eco?
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Whole bunch of things. Cheryl tweeted out some information on Athens burning with wildfires. Turkey is burning, and I'm going to do this real fast, and people can look at the things. Turkey is big wildfires,
The
and the
turkey's
government is
burning.
telling the news.
Nobody wants burnt turkey, first of all. Go ahead.
And
No,
that's right. And
because of
the government
heat.
is telling the news
What
stations
was
not to
the
cover
oven
it
set
so
at?
much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's big. It's part of the overall trend, obviously, what's happening. Moving on from that, there's a study that shows that a clean electricity standard, which is kind of a big deal, it's getting a big push now, would result in $1.7 trillion in environmental and health benefits. So you're putting a price on carbon, taxing carbon, and the other way you do it, and we do both in California, is to have a clean electricity standard, which says a certain percentage of the energy must be zero carbon. And that's another way. It's kind of, in a sense, a way of putting a price on carbon. And so you probably should do both, by the way, but that's getting a big push now. So that was a study showing that would have a big benefit. An amazing picture, which of a girl standing on the beach with a little inflatable toy around her, looking at the fires burning in Turkey. So you should take a look at that. I sent that to your message DM. You can send that out. And then a very nice overview by David Wallace Wells, who probably people know, who did a tweet thread on the upcoming COP26 conference in UK, I believe, Glasgow, right? And starting October 31st, and how far behind it already is, and the fact that Kyoto was to announce a problem, Paris was to say we're going to fix the problem, and this one was supposed to be how we're going to do it, but we're not agreeing on what we need to do, and the things that we've already agreed to do aren't really working, and we're going to hit 1.5 degrees much faster than everyone thought. So it's a good thread to review. And one other, it's really nice thread that I retweeted also under Tech News Around the World from Akshat Rathi about carbon capture technology, because a lot of people say, oh, it's new and it hasn't scaled, and that's just not true. It's been around for decades. It's capturing about 30 million tons a year on an ongoing basis. There's been so it does. So you can't say it doesn't exist or it hasn't scaled. But the thing is, it certainly hasn't scaled to what we need it. And he's arguing that we need more investment, and I agree with that. It's going to be something. If we make it through this, it's going to be something that helps save our ass. It's not the only thing to do, but we have to do everything. Of course, we have to cut emissions and also take CO2 out of the air that's already there. And the bottom line is, you can do it, but there's not a lot of incentives to do it, and we need a lot more investment to get the technology sort of on a path that wind and solar got on, right? You get enough of it going, and then you get the price down, you figure out how to make it in large quantity. I want to make one non-eco comment on your previous story about rolling out the SpaceX booster. What's really amazing about that is they put on like 20 plus engines in like less than a day, which is just absolutely mind-boggling that you can do something like that. So they are producing this rocket so much faster than like any other rocket company ever has. It's just incredible to see, and it's going to be exciting to watch when that thing goes off. So anyway, thanks.
Okay, so next headline at the moment is about we'll go in order here. Faraz just had one about LiDAR enables full journey tracking of shopper across the entire retail space. Full journey coverage means that retailers can now measure every step of the shopper's journey. And LiDAR is an emerging technology with applications in autonomous vehicles, security, and even in retail. So I just tweeted that one out so you can learn how you're going to be tracked from the second your car enters the shopping mall parking lot until when you leave, and how they'll use all of that sweet, juicy data. And the next one is about Netflix. Netflix now countersues Alan Dershowitz, who's a famous American lawyer. And apparently Alan Dershowitz is suing Netflix. Now Netflix countersues Alan Dershowitz over the Jeffrey Epstein docuseries. The rich are different, that us, and as the legal battle over the streamer's Filthy Rich docuseries reveals, it's because Dershowitz is accused of, well, it's not accused. It's known that he went with Jeffrey Epstein to his private island and to his houses and got massages from the girls in his house. And Alan Dershowitz says, yeah, I got the massage and my wife was there with us and she got a massage too. And it was very nice. It was a nice massage. She was a lovely young lady. And it was like, that's what my recollection of the interview, but I could be mistaken. But the Netflix is going to do a docuseries on this. And I'm sure Alan Dershowitz would prefer that they don't. And so he's suing, and now Netflix is countersuing. Tencent boss loses $14 billion. And he's the guy who has lost a bunch of money during the tech crackdowns, and even very recently in the past 48 hours on the gaming crackdowns. And he lost $14 billion. And remember, the EdTech investor guy lost also $15 billion. So you've now got two notable people losing tens of billions. It's a whole lot of billions. Ouch. And the next one is from a gentleman named Kal Patel. And he says that choice is an article, and the headline is Choice Paradox in Grocery Retail, how to help consumers make the right choice. To meet the expectations of ever more demanding consumers, the offer of grocery products has skyrocketed in the last decade, and they plan to collect even more data on the consumers, demonstrated by the recent opening of Amazon Fresh stores in the UK. Cameras and sensors track consumers' in-store behaviors to enable more knowledge about the consumer behaviors. And it's a big article all about that I just tweeted out. Thank you, Kal Patel. That name rings a bell. That sounds familiar. He looks familiar.
I've heard of that guy before.
You heard of him? I'm pretty sure he eats Subway. But the next article is about the new European ID card that comes into force today. It's called the DNI 4.0, the first of the new national identity documents, known as DNI 4.0, have been handed out today. The ID card, which will be mandatory throughout the European Union, will include the fingerprint and the face of the citizen. The arrival of this new document does not mean that the old one is no longer valid, but anyone renewing their DNI will be given the new card. And what's new about this new card? Well, another advantage of the DNI 4.0 offers is that it can be registered on the user's mobile phone. Tied to your Apple ID, which is now mandatory on every fucking app in your phone. Do you get it now? Are you getting it now? Are you getting it now? Hello, as predicted. It can be used in official applications both in Spain and the European Union, and will allow citizens to stop physically carrying their ID card and even use the online function to book appointments and pay for services. Oh, you mean I can use my state ID inside the apps inside my phone? How fantastic. Yeah. Here it comes. Get ready for verified identities on all of your apps. So, Southeast Asia mints 6 unicorns in 2 months. There you go. Here it comes. Southeast Asia mints 6 unicorns in 2 months. Singapore-based crypto finance startup Matrix Port is the region's newest billion-dollar company, and there's 5 more, and you can read about it from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. And Poppy sent one from Forbes. Headline reads, Council Post, the power of VR for employee education and how to get started. From Forbes, businesses have an opportunity to build a future for employee education that includes effective elements from video games, meaning VR. And that's how you know that These big tech giants that are allowing everyone to work wherever they want, anywhere in the world, they're now going to be able to train everybody in the world to become Facebook employees or Google employees or Apple employees or what have you, when you can train them with a VR headset. So, the roaring 2020s is the next headline from Forbes, from Poppy. And this decade may roar just like the 1920s because of the accelerated digital productivity as a result of COVID, scalable AI, which is now really starting to take off, and the capital surplus as a result of zero and negative interest rates. That means there's more money than ever looking for safe places to put it. And tech seems like a very safe place to put money these days. And accelerated digital productivity because of COVID, and scalable AIs, which are indeed taking off. And you add those three things together, and that's why it's raining money in tech in 2021. Doubling.
And just remember, though, the 1920s had a hangover called the 1930s depression. That's all.
I'm on with that one too. I don't see that this might be any different. So I've now caught up to the past 9 hours of tweets. So if you tweeted in the past 9 hours, I'm just getting to yours now. My apologies. And but we're going to pause and join together in about 14 hours. So go have a Subway sandwich, foot long. Try the tuna. Try the new.
Also, we have an upcoming climate tech news climate room coming up at 9:30.
In which time zone, Dan?
Oh, well, 20 minutes from now.
I'm sorry, perfect. 9:30. Oh, well, let's power. Yeah. Can you start it early?
Ben can. Ben, are you there? Can you start it early?
Ben, you want to start the climate tech newsroom early? We got Pre-Rock who's raising his hand. Maybe he's got a headline. I can filibuster.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can feel about 80 minutes.
Okay. Pennsylvania bill proposes new digital currency task force. Okay. New York Times has a headline titled, How Russia Wins the Climate Crisis. Climate change is propelling enormous human migrations. Oh, really? Oh, really, New York Times? Climate change is propelling enormous human migrations. Oh, okay. Transforming global agriculture and remaking the world order. And no country stands to gain more than Russia. Oh, interesting.
Tyler.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm just giggling. By any chance, did you see I think I tweeted it. I'm dealing with some stupid kitchen sink thing. I tweeted something. Shopify opened up, and I'm not sure if you've covered this, but I thought it happened today or within the week. A first of a kind, I think, in New York City, this sort of hub. Did you see this?
No.
Okay, so it looks like what it is it's sort of a Shopify physical space in New York City for small businesses, and they've got like a handful of small businesses in the space. And what I think I read, because I'm not looking at it right now, it seems to be like local businesses, and it may be like sort of a pilot, or it may be just the first of a kind, where they're partnering with local businesses to have like a space where like there's a coffee shop on the first floor, and it looks like maybe a brownstone style or like a space where you'd have like Shopify employees would be staffed in the space. They'd have a multitude of different kinds of small businesses hold court in this space, but they'd also have Shopify employees in the space to help other small businesses that would check in. There's a co-working space. There's other small businesses that have like a little kiosk or maybe have a setup in that space so that you could sort of drop in there, have a space to work. There's probably Wi-Fi. There's probably a host of different kinds of businesses set up. And you could sort of stop in there and be like, oh, what are you guys doing here? Oh, maybe I want to have a Shopify space, but I'm having trouble, or I never thought about opening a Shopify account. What do I do? How do I start? Maybe there's a troubleshooting, like, customer service kiosk or something, but it's sort of, and I hate to sort of be that one, but like I proposed this to one of my clients years ago and they kind of looked at me and went, that's lame. But now that I'm seeing it, I'm like, hi, I think this is an amazing way to meet your customers where they are and sort of show them in sort of this, and I love the way I proposed it was like Barbie dream house, like storefront style, like show your customers where they are, like what would be on the first floor, what would be on a second floor in terms of like where they would be on a Main Street USA, and show them exactly what it would look like, but then in a digital storefront. Does that make sense?
Yep. Makes sense.
Okay.
Tina, so
Yes.
Anil Patel, who is the CEO of Shopify's multi-channel division, actually just shared in LinkedIn. I just happened to see it via another friend this morning. They're really focusing on customer centricity. So since
Yes.
Shopify's customers are these small businesses, that really aligns with what their strategy seems to be. So, I mean, it is interesting that they're focusing on the physical because we've spent so much time in this room talking about, what they're doing in the digital space and to accelerate social commerce. But I don't know if I can tweet it. I think I can tweet it out because he actually interviewed my longtime friend Kenny Anderson, who was SVP of global merchandising for Giorgio Armani, and it was a conversation around how do you really understand your customer, and I think that even though there's this transition to social commerce, it's all the more important that businesses who are using these platforms still have a fundamental understanding of who their customers are and what their needs are. I mean, they just can't throw some really influential people trying to sell merchandise if they don't have a fundamental understanding of who their customers are and what they experience and what
Yeah,
they
it's a
really
win-win.
want.
Yeah, great point.
Well, and to that point, exactly. And I think for anybody who's worked with small businesses over the past, 20 to 25 years, right? We thought they would be, of course they're going to want to be on the web. And they were the hardest and continue to be the hardest to adopt any kind of get on the web and do anything, because either they don't have the time, they don't have the expertise, or they simply don't understand it. And so this, I think, is, especially after the pandemic, those who did, they still are having problems. And when you think about, where do we keep our inventory? How am I going to understand this? I don't see it. I don't understand, whatever it is. This is the perfect place to do that, especially with those who still do have a storefront and are still not understanding it. I'm just so excited that they've done this. And I wish the other organizations like them, like anyone who's targeting small business or getting into that space would follow this and find a way to do it, whether it's, they have the money to create these kinds of spaces, because they're going to be popping up everywhere, similar to what Amazon is doing with their, I don't know if it's cashless or it's like I don't know the word, but that sort of like no cashier system. I'm seeing one popping up here in Burlingame downtown, where you just go in, grab your items, and then walk out, and somehow it's charging you. I'm really excited about the space, but thank you, Lakeisha. Yeah, really exciting.
Absolutely. And I've invited both of them to our room, but I did tell Anil that our good friend Cal Patel is on hiatus because I think that Cal would have a lot to contribute just because we used a lot. I mean, Best Buy's strategy was also focused on customer centricity. This was, back in the day, but it's still core to how they do business. So I think it'd be really interesting to hear some of the near term, strategies as much as they can share from the person who is responsible for them at Shopify.
You know what? I'm going to predict that may be our next spoke room off of this hub, Tyler, is a small business around the world.
Okay.
That might have to be something we think
or,
about.
Or e-commerce or
ooh,
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's see.
I think I can start that other room if you want.
Okay. I had Shopify's what was it, co-founder at my event, and I did an event with Shopify in Stockholm, so I can reach out to them and see if they want to pop in here, and I'm a shareholder as well in full transparency. Yeah. So anyway, when it's likely that they'll be able to send someone in to join us.
Yeah, but I mean, and I just want to say this one last thing. I mean, I have this theory about how we're flipping the script in terms of, work in general, that employers and employees, there's a changing dynamic in terms of who's really going to be authoring the narrative going forward. I mean, we've seen it here. We've talked about it in terms of who's really in charge of whether or not we're going back into the office. Apple tried to prescribe, like, we're going back to the office, and their employees revolted, sort of said, no, I don't think so. And that's happening maybe in tech right now, but it's going to continue to happen, whether or not people are comfortable, whether or not they really want to. People are quitting their jobs to say, no, I'm not going to listen to what you're saying, and I've got choices. Small business has been devastated by the pandemic. Companies like Shopify are giving them options and giving them better ways, if not, I mean, and I think we've all said it, right? Hybrid is here. Hybrid is the future. You're going to have a storefront and a digital footprint. So if that's the case, I would love to see that small business owners, more people have small businesses, as the gig economy has given all of us a chance to have more than one revenue stream. You don't have one job, you've got multiple, so you have choices, so that in the future, if there are going to be, and I hate to say it, multiple pandemics or devastating things that happen in our lifetime, we don't have to rely on government handouts or whatever it is. We've got a way to save ourselves. And I can say all things like decentralization. That's a way for us as human beings to decentralize ourselves. Anyways, thank you for listening. Thanks, guys.
Is there any evidence that Glassdoor is capitalizing on this huge opportunity given their market position?
Interesting.
So the Green Tech News room is open, and the name of it is Green Tech News. We don't have time to ignore it. From Tech News, Ben's there moderating. We're all going to hop over there now. And I just tweeted the link to the Tech News Twitter account if you want to go that way, or you can follow me over there. I'll be over there hanging out, and we're going to go into the Clean Tech News. It's called Clean Tech News. We don't have time to ignore it is the name of the room.